All right. Okay. As you can see, the topic of the day is biological considerations. And when I say biological considerations, I mean it can be gingival and periodontium, on the whole periodontium, because periodontium itself includes gingival, right? So this is the good news is this is your last lecture of this session for final year. And the good news, the second good news is we're going to be planning few revision classes for you as well. And the bad news is that now it's time for you to show how much you know, right? So soon enough, we're going to plan something which will include assessing you, evaluating you, how much you know theoretically, practically. I guess, yeah, we know that you do not know as much as we thought you would know. But this is the last class, so just a sec. Okay, this is just my mother in the background. So yeah. So the topic is biological considerations, and the last topic because it is not directly linked to conservative dentistry or endodontics, but indirectly it plays a very important role. So I'm going to be walking you through the margin placement. So when we talk about biological consideration, you actually have three departments. It's like an interplay between three fields of dentistry. One, of course, is operative slash restorative dentistry. That is why I am taking this lecture for you today. The second is obviously periodontics, right? Because we're talking about periodontium. And the third one, yes, you guessed it right, it has to be prostho. When you study prostho, you're going to come across a how to place a margin or how you go about with tooth preparation. So there is a thing in cons we call it cavity preparation, okay? But in prosto we call it tooth preparation because after your root canal therapy is done, or even if you're doing, or if even if you're providing a crown on a whiter tooth, you will have to undergo this procedure known as tooth preparation, where you're basically cutting the tooth margin on which the future crown will be placed, right? So they will teach you in detail about the different variety of margins that we have in prosto. I'm not gonna confuse you with the margins that are placed for crown placement in prosto. They will be covering that, but definitely I'll walk you through what these margins are and how it is important to today's topic. The next and the most important thing is biological weight. You can see this question in short note, be it prosto, endo, or prosto, cons, endo, or your perio. You can see this short note in your exams with in relation to any of these subjects. So you should exactly know what biological weight is. It has its specific definition, it has its meaning. So kindly listen to me properly today. Next is what if you violate this biological weight? What's gonna happen if you do violate? Okay. The third is how do you evaluate it, right? If you want to correct it, you have to first evaluate it and then plan your treatment, right? Then what are the guidelines that you're supposed to follow before you're thinking of providing a crown to the patient? The last one is correction, and the last one, of course, is take home message. So why when I say that this topic is indirectly related to operative dentistry slash endodontics. Why do I say this? Because in endo, we only talk about root canal therapy, especially at your, at your age, at your time of dentistry. We will be teaching you about all about root canal therapies, right? So that is why I say this topic is indirectly related. Why? Because it is the endodontist or it is the operative person's duty to evaluate the case thoroughly before you even plan on going for a root canal therapy. If you do not evaluate the tooth on the whole, if you do not look into the biological consideration of the tooth, there is no point doing a good root canal therapy when eventually the tooth cannot even receive a crown. I hope I'm making a bit, sense about the topic that I'm trying to discuss today. So kindly listen to me. The more you listen, I will tell you what all you have to write. So just don't write everything. So just listen, and I think you can grasp most of it. So I've got you this image of love birds here. Why I got this, I'm going to tell you. So first of all, I'm going to tell you that first and most basic objective of operative slash restorative dentistry is preservation of tooth structure. Everybody knows that. It's in the definition of operative dentistry itself. However, for the long-term survival of restoration, the periodontium must also remain healthy and vice versa. So we're not just thinking about our pulp, dentine, and enamel, we're thinking about the tooth as a whole, okay? Even the periodontium. So if your periodontium is healthy and vice versa, I think your tooth will survive. It's going to have a long survival, right? So that is why the lovebirds on the top extreme left, I've got you because there is a very strong bond between our periodontal health and the restoration that we provide to the tooth. So basically, you define its longevity, right? Next we have is, as I just described in the outline, that I will be talking about margin placement. So, as I just mentioned, that this relationship that we have of the periodontium and restoration is intimate and it's inseparable. So you have to plan each and every step of your restoration accordingly, and that's why we've got three kinds of margin. You might have heard these in prosto or somewhere in perio. So you can just write down the names and that's it. You're supposed to do from this slide. So margin placements, three options for margin placements are there. Any clinician on the planet has three options for placing the margins. These margins can be supragingival, they can be equigingival, and they can be subgingival. But what about these three margins? So it is widely believed that the best biological placement for a restorative margin is supragingival. As the name suggests, supra means above the gingiva, equi at the level of gingiva, and sub means below the gingival crest. Right? So what I just said, it is believed that the best biological place for placement of restorative margin is supragingival. Why do I say so, and why everybody agrees to this about supragingival margins? Is because they actually stay away from the periodontal tissues. In your layman's terminology, they are staying away from the periodontal tissues. Or if I have to define it more dentally, I'm going to say it is away from the apparatus. What apparatus? That we're going to quickly discuss in our biological consideration. So advantages of supragingival is obviously it is going to preserve more of tooth structure. You do not know what kind of surprise you have under subgingival, right? And equigingival. So impressions, when we everybody knows that after you're done with endo, you're gonna send the patient to prosto after doing a good post-operative restoration. And there in the prosto department, what they're gonna do, they're gonna prepare the tooth to receive a crown. So once they've prepared the tooth, what next step will be? It will be about taking the impression of this very tooth on which the future crown will be placed. So in cases of supragingival, the impression technique is also very predictable. Okay, and there's this thing called a cord. It's like a thread that you place inside the gingiva so that your margins, they open up and you can record the impression very well. And in the future crown, you're gonna get the entire proper seat of this crown. So in cases of supragingival, the gingival cord placement technique is also either you do not require the cord or it is only minimal requirement of the cord. Now, what this cord is, I'm going to show you quickly if you're not able to see. Now, in this image, can you see this black kind of thread? That's the gingival cord. What are you doing? Basically, you want to open up that gingival crest and you want to take the impression properly. So you place this margin and wait for you place this cord and wait for a bit to it to open up, and then you take the impression. The future impression and the future crown will make sure that your crown will sit properly on this entire margin that you have created. Coming back to the topic which I am supposed to teach you today, in cases of supragingival, when you're done cementation, you have cemented the crown. The excess cement that is around the tooth structure will also be easy to remove in cases of supragingival as compared to any other kind of margin. Right, and also from a periodontal point of view, the both supragingival as well as equigingival margins are well tolerated. Right, this is exactly what I've been talking about for past 5 minutes. Supragingival, as you can see in the first image, Equigingival, the margins are placed just at the equal level of gingiva in the diagram, which is in the middle. The last one is subgingival. You have to place the margin below the gingival crest, right? So let's talk about the subgingival margin. The greatest biologic risks occur when we place the subgingival margin. If we place the margin which is below the gingival tissue crest, it violates the gingival attachment apparatus. So I've been naming this apparatus so many times. So I want to describe this apparatus in detail in my next slide. So let's just quickly go to that slide, which is the biologic rationale. Now I want you to quickly draw the diagram. Very important for your perio, cons, and pros. So anytime they ask you, अच्छा gingival consideration क्या होते हैं? The one thing that should click your head is this biologic quiz, or they can just simply put this question in your exam as a short note in any goddamn subject. It can be cons, it can be pros, so it can definitely be perio. So you should from today onwards know what is the basic significance of biologic quiz. It is very important. So don't be, shocked, surprised when you see this question in your exam, not just as biologic consideration, but also as biologic quiz, right? So please make sure you remember this diagram and you know what exactly is biologic quiz, right? So I'm hoping that you guys are drawing this diagram. So Fisher, back in 1959, he was the guy who coined the term dento-gingival junction. It has a few other names also, but when I say dento-gingival junction, what I'm trying to say that in 1959 this guy coined this term, and back in 1961 it was found that the vertical dimension of this dento-gingival junction consists or comprises of what? It comprises of three things that you're seeing right here. The first one is the sulcus or the sulcus depth that the dentist evaluates. The first one is the sulcus depth. The second one is the junctional epithelium, which is comprised into the biologic fluids here, right? The first one is sulcus, second one is junctional epithelium, third is connective tissue attachment. तो जब तीन चीजें मेरी डेंटो जिंजाइवल जंक्शन में आ गई हैं, उन तीनों में से दो चीज तो मिलके what is it forming? It is forming the biologic fluid, right? So biologic fluids in an easy terminology consists of what? It consists of our junctional epithelium plus connective tissue attachment. Please remember the dimension of biologic waste. It is 2.04 mm, which is the dimension of epithelium or your junctional epithelium, plus the connective tissue attachment, which means 0.97 for the epithelium and 1.07 for the connective tissue attachment. This is what is the normal dimension. Remember this. This can come for your NEET PG exam also. 2.04 mm for biologic fluid. अभी फर्क नहीं पड़ रहा, next year बहुत फर्क पड़ेगा when you're sitting idle, going to the clinics and you're thinking I need to prepare for exam. These small questions you're gonna have to mug up then, so why not start remembering from now? Okay, so remember the blue shaded area is your biologic fluid, which consists of your junctional epithelium plus connective tissue attachment. I'm hoping that I've repeated it so many times that you might have just, gotten in your head and will not forget it now. Okay. So first of all, I want you to write down this definition of junctional epithelium. This is coming straight from your Karanza. Please write down this definition. It is a physiologic dimension. Just the simple way I described, क्या चीज होती है biologic with junctional epithelium plus connective tissue, दोनों को मिला दे, that will form our biologic fluid. So in definition, it is the physiologic dimension of junctional epithelium and connective tissue attachment above the level of alveolar crest. Now, a lot of things are clear with above the level of alveolar crest. मतलब क्या है, उसके नीचे तो जाना ही नहीं है. अगर नीचे जाना है, you're violating the biologic fluid. A tooth, whenever you're planning a treatment on the tooth, on this particular tooth, whatever you have to see is biologic fluid है भी या नहीं है. एंड अगर है तो कितनी है, नॉर्मल है कि नहीं है. ऑल दीज थिंग्स हैव टू बी इवैल्यूएटेड बिफोर you move on to your treatment, right? Employing your treatment. So I repeat, physiologic dimension of the junctional epithelium and connective tissue attachment, which is above the level of alveolar crest, is known as biologic weight according to your Carranza. Next, we have another definition. A simple, if you remember the first one from Carranza, you don't have to mug up any other, but people who would like to write more into the exam, please jot this down as well. It is a dimension of space that the healthy gingival tissues occupy above the alveolar bone. I repeat, it is the dimension of space that the healthy gingival tissues occupy above the alveolar bone. Now, this is something not very making most, like it is not clarifying what is biologic weight. But if you remember this definition, it's going to be easy for you to understand this next statement that I just wrote. This one, okay? So there's a healthy gingival tissues का मतलब क्या है? Healthy gingival tissues का मतलब है your junctional epithelium and your connective tissue attachment. It has to be above the level of alveolar crest. Okay. So before I move on to the technicalities of biologic consideration or your technicalities of biologic quiz, I want to describe or discuss few significance of this biologic quiz. Why is it so important? Its presence around every tooth is very important. Actually, if I have to tell you about biologic quiz, consider it as a three-dimensional concept. Okay, it's a three-dimensional concept which is not limited to a single linear plane. Okay, just try and imagine the tooth around which it has a biologic weight, which has to be three-dimensional, obviously, because the tooth is three-dimensional, right? In fact, this natural barrier or the shield, what are we calling? Why are we calling this as a natural barrier or shield? Because it protects the tooth. It protects the two most vulnerable structures of a tooth. And what are these two most vulnerable structures of a tooth? Yes, you got that right. What do you have underneath around the periodontium? You have the periodontal ligament and your alveolar bone, right? If you look closer, this horizontal bands that are present in this diagram, what are these? These are your periodontal ligament fibers. If you remember, you have so many of them, right? You must have studied in your first year. And this one, the yellow one with the dotted appearance, what is that? That's your bone, right? So it is basically protecting the two most vulnerable structures of a tooth, which are the periodontal ligament, or you can call them the periodontal ligament fibers, and the alveolar bone, which ultimately, if you don't take care of these, or if you do take care of these, which will ultimately determine the survival and longevity of any of the goddamn treatment you do in your dentistry. I hope I am clear and very elaborative in this concept of biologic weight. Right, let's move on. So this tooth or this biologic weight, if this distance is less than 2 mm, ideally it should be 2.04 mm. If it is less than 2 mm at one or more locations, as I just told you, it's a three-dimensional concept. So try and imagine the tooth as a 3D structure, which it is, right? So you have to evaluate this distance not just at one place, but around the circle of the tooth at one or more locations. If it is less than 2 mm, a diagnosis of biologic weight violation can be confirmed. I hope I'm trying to, subtract the topic for you and make it more easy for you. So understand, you're going to have to evaluate this biologic weight around the tooth, not just at one place. And if it is less than 2 mm, at one or more locations, a diagnosis of biologic weight violation can be confirmed. So okay, so you've evaluated, you've probed it, and now you know something of uh, some sort of violation is happening. And the other criteria for knowing whether the violation is happening or is going to happen in the future is the presence of bone loss on the radiograph and recession when you clinically check the tooth or teeth, right? So violation of biologic weight can also be noted through the radiograph, which can show you bone loss. The bone loss can occur in a variety of other, effects or in other diseases as well. And recession you can see. So let's go on to Okay, before I discuss what is a clear-cut way of evaluating violation of biologic quiz or a clear-cut positive assessment of biologic quiz, I'm going to quickly tell you a few other, I'm going to throw a few important aspects for you to evaluate your biologic quiz in detail. Let's talk about the gingival biotypes. This is not the first time I am telling you about gingival biotypes. You have read this in your, previous classes. I am very sure in Karanza, in Perio, they teach you a lot about gingiva. I just want you to relate to just a minor aspect of gingiva. So if you go back to your gingiva, you know that gingival biotypes have a significant impact on the outcome of the restorative treatment that you provide. So according to Austin, Bean, and Ross, the gingival biotypes are of two types. Like they have uh, classified this gingival biotype, and they came up with two types. The first one is scalloped and thin. Scalloped and thin. The second one is flat and thick. I repeat, the gingival biotype. The first one is scalloped and thin, and the second one is flat and thick. Let me just grab some water. I'm so sorry. So the first one was scalloped and thin. The second one was flat and thick. Okay. So gingival thickness, if it is greater than 2 mm or it is 2 mm, it was considered as a thick tissue biotype. I repeat, सिंपल अगर डिफाइन करें जिंजावा को तो एक थिक होती है एक थिन होती है ठीक है जो थिन होती है वो ज्यादा स्कैलोप्ड होती है by type only if you look into more and more patients you'll realize the thin gingiva is more scalloped and the thick one is a little flat. Okay. So the thicker one, how do you know if it is thick or not? The thickness of this gingiva has to be either 2 mm or more than 2 mm, right? And if it is considered to be thin, it has to be less than 1 mm thickness, right? So what is the crux of the slide? It is that highly scalloped thin gingiva are more prone to recession. So if the clinician already knows how to read the entire oral cavity, how to study it, they will eventually know what's going to happen next to the tooth and they are going to plan the treatment accordingly. Right? Even the slightest sign of recession, they will just try and evaluate whether or not the biologic width has been violated on the treatment that has been given to the patient. So this is just an added information for you as clinicians. You should know if it is a highly scalloped thin gingiva, it will be more prone to recession. Okay, let's move on. So before the slide, I was talking to you about evaluation of biologic weight, right? So evaluation of biologic weight, if we check the radiographic interpretation, we can see interproximal violations of biologic weights happening in the slide. There is immense bone loss happening, but bone loss can be categorized into other diseases of periodontium as well. So it's not a clear-cut indication, okay, biologic weight se hi problem hui hai. As you can see, there is a crown placement which has been done on a whiter tooth of the molar. And you see that the crown ka jo margin hai, which is going subgingivally, because of that, the bone loss might have happened. But how do you know that for sure? Radiographs are not diagnostic because of the tooth superimposition. So you can't be like 100%, 200% sure that, okay, this bone loss has occurred only because of the violation of biologic weight. Then what is the positive assessment, right? The positive test or positive assessment of biologic weight, or how to check in simple terms, how do you check for, or how do you evaluate biologic weight, can be made clinically by measuring the distance between bone and restoration margin using a periodontal probe. I repeat, it is as simple as that. It can be made using a periodontal probe. So what do? How do you identify? We basically probe under local anesthesia to the bone level. We are gonna anesthetize the tooth, the particular tooth, and then we're going to probe around the tooth at the level of bone. This whole process is called as sounding of bone or sounding to bone. There's a video coming up in a few consecutive slides where you will be, checking it out yourself, the sounding of bone. And what we do when we've done this sounding to bone, we will subtract the sulcus depth, and then the resulting measurement will be the measurement of your biologic width, which includes what? Includes the epithelium and your connective tissue attachment. So basically, you take a probe and measure the entire sulcus. You may measure the entire bone level. Okay. And then what you do, you subtract the sulcus depth and you will get your biologic width. This is known as sounding to bone or sounding off bone. As I just mentioned, the positive assessment has to be you probing under local anesthesia. Okay. It's not radiographs, it's using a simple periodontal probe. This is what I was talking about. Let me just switch off my Bluetooth so you can hear the.
Right? So you basically have to do this throughout the distance of the tooth. You just don't have to do it at one place. And if it is if the distance that you just measured is less than 2 mm at one or more locations, a diagnosis of biologic width violation can be confirmed. I repeat, you first do this bone sounding procedure on the particular offending tooth, and if this distance is less than 2 mm at one or more places, at one or more locations, then you can confirm that biologic width violation has occurred on this particular tooth. Okay, so here I'm sorry. So in case if the tooth has a shallow probing depth, and this clinician, what he's doing is he or she is studying the particular tooth before even doing any restoration or before thinking about a future restoration on this particular tooth. Now he or she is probing the depth and it is shallow. I repeated, I just told you if it is less than 2 mm. So here the probing depth is only 1 to 1.5 mm. So, what is the clinician learning from this experience? He or she has to extend the preparation more than 0.5 mm. Why so? Because you have to make sure you include the biologic width, you have to respect, and if not, you have to create some so that your future crown will not fall on or will not hinder your biologic width. I hope you're understanding tad bit of from this. This particular case has a shallow probing depth, so it is recommended that extending the preparation more than 0.5 mm subgingivally will eventually violate your attachment, right? So if you just try and understand, this tooth structure has been lost, the natural tooth structure has been lost. So if you go deep into the subgingival area, or if you go under the crest, the bone alveolar crest, you will eventually violate the alveolar crest and eventually violate the what is known as biologic width. So it's trying to say ये जो है ये criteria है आपका इतना आपके सामने है. Now you have to plan your treatment accordingly. So the first case is shallow probing depth. The second one I have is, so sorry, डीप प्रोबिंग डेप्थ. इट इज 2 mm. अब 2 mm की अगर डेप्थ आ रही है, जो कि हर मोस्ट ऑफ द यंग इंडिविजुअल्स अस and young adults will have this kind of depth. You, me today, if you go probe your teeth, you're going to see something which is more than 2 mm or it is definitely 2 mm. At this point, you have to know that, okay, I have more freedom in locating restoration margins. I can either place them subgingivally depending on the carious lesion, or I can even place them equigingivally. I know it is a little hard for you to understand, but Let's come back to this case and discuss it more. If you have a shallow probing depth, what do you have to take from the slide is, okay, that only means कि मेरे जो margins हैं, I can't just be placing the margins wherever, subgingival, supragingivally or equigingival as I want. No, if you do so, you're gonna definitely violate the attachment and eventually violate the biologic width. So in cases like this, where you already have a 2 mm, you're going to use your periodontal probe, which you so often use in cons, the ones you're not supposed to be using in cons, but this is exactly the time you're supposed to use the perio probe, which you guys have. Everybody has that probe, right? So you're going to evaluate the probing depth, and if it is coming to that only means that, okay, endo ho gaya, caries ho gaya, restoration ho gaya, ab mujhe kya crown dene ka hai, and now I can give the margin as supragingival or equigingival. Equigingival कब देंगे? Very very easy thing to say here is equigingival matlab you're not able to see the margin because the margin is placed exactly at the level of gingiva. When do you want your margin to be placed exactly at gingiva? It's when it is when the patient is concerned with the aesthetics, right? If it's an anterior tooth that you have to replace it with a crown, you can't be placing a supragingival margin because if you do, you're going to see the natural tooth and you're going to see the crown, and you can easily demarcate, okay, यहाँ पे crown खत्म हो रहा है, यहाँ पे मेरा natural tooth start हो रहा है. So cases like these where you have anterior concerns to be taken care of, in such cases you can go with equigingival. Okay, so my topic of concern is not that today, but since I'm trying to tell you about the margins, I'm just going to clarify where exactly you're going to plan and think about a equigingival margin. But in case of posterior teeth, if you have good probing depth of 2 mm, please go ahead with your supragingival margins because you have more freedom in locating any kind of restorative margins, and you do not have to think about undergoing a subgingival margin. So let's go through the margin placement guidelines. As you can see the diagrams on the right, as I just mentioned, the prosto will cover most of your margin placement as well as a lot many finished lines in detail. Since we indirectly talk about crowns, we do, especially at your level as a postgrad resident, you will come across a lot of margin placement. You will have to read about it, the finished lines, because you will be asked to provide crowns as well, because once you're out there in your dental practice, you would want कि अच्छा मैं endo भी करूँ और साथ में crown भी दूँ, right? So that's for the later point. But definitely be assured that Prosto will cover the finish lines or might have covered already. Some of the margins or finish lines that must have been taught to you include chamfer, shoulder, heavy chamfer, sloping shoulder, radial shoulder, shoulder with bevel, knife edge, feather edge, chisel edge, and a few more. So if you do, if you can relate to what I just said, so you don't have to worry about that. But my concern is when you're placing these margins, the margins that I discussed were supragingival, equigingival, and subgingival. You have to take care of three rules, three important rules. Please start writing these rules, very important rules. The first rule, as you can see, just try and look at the picture on the left. I'll give you time to write. Just first listen to me. Just first listen to me. As I just told you, this is a gingival cord, and this instrument is known as cord packer. It's known as cord packer to pack the cord inside the gingiva. Okay. So the first rule of how to place the margin or guidelines for margin placement, it says that if the sulcus probes, if you're probing the sulcus and it is 1.5 mm or less, I repeat, if you probe the sulcus and it is coming out to be 1.5 mm or less, we have to place the restoration margin 0.5 mm below the gingival tissue crest. This is especially important on the facial aspect, and it does prevent the biologic width violation. Now it answers this particular case. Shallow probing depth है 1.5 mm से कम है या 1.5 mm है. इस केस में हम क्या करेंगे? अब तुम लोगों ने ये स्लाइड जो मैंने दिखाया, you might be confused कि ठीक है 0.5 mm subgingivally किया तो it will violate the gingival biologic width apparatus, right? Let's go back to the rule one. I repeat again. If you're probing the sulcus and it is coming out to be 1.5 mm or less, What are you supposed to do? You're supposed to place the restoration margin 0.5 mm below the gingival tissue crest. This is especially important in cases of facial aspects because it will eventually prevent the biologic width violation. I hope you've written rule number one. Only 0.5 mm into below the gingival crest. Not more than that you're supposed to extend, okay? Especially for the facial aspects if you want to prevent the biologic width violation. The next rule or rule number two, it says that please try and look at the images also. Again, the cord is placed. This is like a double cord. You will be reading about the cords also once you move more and more into detail about tooth preparation in prosto. If the sulcus probes more than 1.5 mm, I repeat, if the sulcus probes more than 1.5 mm, we will place the margin one half the depth of sulcus, which is below the tissue crest. This will place the margin far enough below so that it still is covered if the patient is at higher risk of recession. Okay, if you're not able to understand most of it, it's okay. All I want you to do is just jot down the rules as short as I have written here. If you just remember rule 1, rule 2, rule 3, as simple and as short as I have written here, you don't have to worry about anything. The first one, I hope it's clear. 1.5 mm और उससे कम होगी तो हम 0.5 mm सब gingival crest के अंदर include करेंगे. That is it. The second one says if it is more than 1.5 mm, the margin will be placed one half depth of the sulcus. Just have to remember, agar more than 1.5 mm hai, so that's okay. You don't have to worry about anything. One half of the sulcus depth अपने आप ही वो place हो जाएगा. You don't have to worry about you don't have to worry whether or not you're violating the biologic width or not. Just please jot down the rules as short as I have written here. Please jot down. This is important. When you do define biologic width in your exam as a short note, you will eventually have to write these rules as well. The three simple rules. The next one, and it's an easier one. The rule 3 says, rule 3, as I have shown you, what is the procedure is here? Gingivectomy. Rule 3 says if a sulcus is greater than 2 mm, and in some cases you see people who have gummy gingivas or gummy smiles, you will see if sorry, please mute yourself, it's disturbing me. Rule number 2, I'm going to be just removing you if you do not pause or if you do not mute yourself now. Okay, so I was talking about rule number 3. If a sulcus is greater than 2 mm, it is very rarely found. Okay, people with gummy smiles, you can see their teeth are actually hidden in their gingiva. In such cases, if eventually they have some kind of cavity, or if they have to undergo a dental treatment which is extensive and you have to evaluate for your biologic weight or the gingival apparatus, in such cases, if the sulcus depth is coming out to be greater than 2 mm, especially at the facial aspect of the tooth, then we have to evaluate to see whether a gingivectomy could be performed. Why do you want to do that? So sorry. You will have to perform a gingivectomy just to lengthen the teeth and create 1.5 mm of sulcus. Then the patient can come back and to be treated in the same way as we treat in case of rule number 1. So basically in rule 3, what we're doing is we can evaluate the tooth for gingivectomy, and after we've done the gingivectomy, we've removed the excess gingiva and we've lengthened the tooth. How do you lengthen the tooth? The tooth is already present, but it is hidden with the gingiva. So you take off that excess gingiva, and now you've created 1.5 mm of sulcus. That's what we're doing in case rule number 1. So now you can go about with placing your crowns and creating the margins the way you want. Am I clear? Right? So in here, YSGG is nothing. It's a laser that is being used to perform a gingivectomy. So it can also be done with your incision also. But I'm just trying to, make you more some kind of brainstorming. That's why I've got you a picture of the laser gingivectomy. Okay, this is again rule 3. I have described you in a conventional way here. What is done? You basically performed a gingivectomy, removed the excess gingiva. Now you've got a sulcus depth of 1.5 mm. What you do after doing this gingivectomy, the conventional way, surgical gingivectomy, as you can see, the margins are placed supragingivally. After the wound has been healed, the gingiva will fall exactly at the either equigingivally or subgingivally. Since it's a posterior tooth, you can go about with placing the crowns the way the conventional way. I hope it is clear. I am trying to show you one with the laser and one with the conventional. This is rule number 3. Let's quickly watch this video. Oh, I have not connected my Bluetooth as of now. Okay, great.
When dental decay runs under the gum line, your dentist must consider how close any type of restoration will be to the nearby jawbone. By gently probing and examining radiographs, a determination can be made whether the restoration would come too close to the bone. The biologic width, the distance from the base of the pocket to the crest of the bone, is the minimum distance required between the bone and a foreign material, like a filling or a crown. If the filling or crown margin came too close to the crest of the bone, then the body's natural defenses would try to reject the crown, causing redness, inflammation, and possible pain along the gum line. A minor procedure can change the shape of the gum and bone in that one area to create enough distance between the crown margin and the bone, allowing for healthy placement of the restorative material.
Right, I hope you're more clear with the video. Whatever I was trying to tell you, it was just described well in the video. So next we have to go about quickly. I'm going to discuss about the correction. Now we've described about how to evaluate the biologic weight, what exactly is biologic weight, how do you evaluate the next thing you want to do, and I also told you what all protocols or guidelines to be followed to not end up in violating this biologic weight. But if even after all that you still I don't know, how do you end up in violating that biologic weight? How do you correct it? So there are 3 kinds of procedure. Please write down the names, very important. 3 important correction methods. The first one is crown lengthening. Please write down the names. The second one is orthodontic extrusion. And lastly, deep margin elevation. The last method you've never heard, and I'm sure most of the residents also do not know about this method, deep margin elevation. So this is something new that I'm getting for you. It's a paradigm shift. It has only been talked about for last 2 years or so. So please be you're actually you should consider yourself fortunate to know about this method and write this in your exam as well. I hope you've written the methods: crown lengthening, orthodontic extrusion, and deep margin elevation, right? The crown lengthening procedure is already discussed in this last rule that I described you. How are you lengthening the crown? You're basically taking off the excess gingiva. The crown underneath is present, but it is hidden with that gummy smile of yours. So what we're gonna do, remove that excess gingiva and lengthen the crown. Okay, so this is the first criteria. Let's just quickly watch the videos on these 3 methods. Everybody knows what this treatment is. Root canal therapy is being done on a tooth which does not have a crown, like a visible residue. This is exposing the bone. Okay. treatment everybody knows. I don't want to ask you. This is my question right here. Quickly tell me, what is this procedure next after root canal? Quickly, quickly. The class has been done on this.
Post and course.
Post and
Good to everybody. Thank you so much for remembering the topic. Very important. So it's like a 3-in-1 video where you can see the root canal happening, where you see the post and core placement. Again, you're going to see the crown, but all of this treatment is being planned and done after evaluating that the future biologic weight will not be violated, right? Do you see that? Yeah. Eventually, this is what how the tooth will heal, right? So at this point, you should be actually very happy because most of the things that are done in endo and cons are already being discussed and taught to you. So anytime, and now is the time you can actually go and read a few articles also. This is a good time. Like after you're done with your final year exams, please start reading good articles. Okay, if you want more details about what journal to read, kindly ask me in the future also. That's exactly when you're going to think, yaar ye sab to discuss hua hai, also I can relate to it better now. Okay, so this is what next is the procedure of orthodontic extrusion. Everybody knows about ortho treatment. Now what is this treatment? Unmute. Yeah,
Implant.
absolutely. So now I'm so sorry, a lot of people will be thinking ये ऐसा क्यों किया. Yes, it's like, yeah, because this is like the best way to provide an implant. Otherwise, what you have to do, that extensive, huge surgical site you have to open, and there won't be any calculation of how much bone you're going to be reducing, right? Over here, did you have to plan any such thing? No, you were undergoing ortho treatment, and the tooth was anyway extruding itself, and you were reducing it, and eventually you got the bone that you wanted, right? Showing it to you again. People who are interested in ortho are going to be very highly looking at it makes you feel so want to do it, right? The wires are not my thing, so people who are interested, please go and check it out. So that screw of the implant is basically embedded inside the bone, and the bone was created, or the bone level was maintained because of the extrusion that you happen to do, right? The last method is known as deep margin elevation. I hope you've written the name DME, deep margin elevation. You're going to find very few good articles on this. In fact, very less data on the internet on this technique because it's a very new technique. Deep margin elevation is kind of a paradigm shift in the procedure, that because it's not an invasive method. Okay, it is not. It is just a basic method. I'm going to tell you quickly. It's also known as margin elevation technique. It's known as proximal box elevation, also known as open sandwich technique. You can find this in this article of 2012. Okay, it is only that old. In cases, it is basically employed in cases of subgingival margins. You already know that sulcal depth बहुत कम है, you will have to think about placing some gingival margins. So then you can employ this procedure known as deep margin elevation. A few advantages over the procedures that are described before, for example, surgical crown lengthening or for orthodontic extrusion. Those methods are kind of invasive as compared to this. This is not invasive at all. So in this procedure involves placing a material to basically place a restorative material to raise the restorative margin to an equigingival or that of a supragingival location. So we can basically use matrices. Okay, let's just quickly watch the video on this and then I'll show you.
Margin right here is the problem, and what we're going to use for that is the margin elevation.
Let me show that again
Margin right
to you. A lot of people, when you come to internship or when you're given cases, you will not bother about this proximal box which does not have the margin. Okay, you're gonna just restore it, place the matrix band and forget about what's gonna happen down there. Maybe you leave an overhang, whether it's gonna recede or there'll be bone loss, whatever, you're not concerned. But at this point, when you step into your clinical practice, you will have to worry because the patient will return after 6 months with bone loss. Why is that? Why will that happen? Because you did not take care of the restoration in the proximal box area. There is a subgingival margin that you did not care about. You place the matrix band which was only till equigingival or it was supragingival. So you have no idea how your restorative material was condensed or how it flew down there. So this is the method you can employ to create more predictable restorations, right?
Here is the problem, and what we're going to use for that is the margin elevation band, and we're going to be using this real matrix version of it. It comes in two different versions. If you want to use your Toffelmeyer, you still have that option, but the benefit of this is it has a nice minimal package, small footprint, stays out of the way, it's not heavy, so it works really, really well. The idea with this band is that we can place it around the tooth, and the narrow aspect of this band, the way that it's cut so that it's not very tall, makes it so that it's very efficient at going down further on the tooth. Instead of getting stuck higher and higher up here and not working its way down, it's really good at getting these isolated deep margins down there. So what I always like to do is figure out which side I'm going to be coming from. So here, buccal makes the most sense. You can come straight buccal, you can go towards the distal or the mesial. I usually say straight buccal or opposite corner of the margin that you're trying to elevate. So coming a little bit from the distal gives it a nice tension. So when I do that, then I want to make sure I line up the real matrix handle so that it has a good path of insertion or access. You don't want to be fighting the cheek or anything like that. So let me get that set up. Now, how this works with the real matrix handle is you have a nice little area here where you pull and it releases these arms that will grab right into the real matrix, and you insert it in, and then you can pull back on that ball, and then you have it nicely positioned. So now as I come in, one of the key things is that you cannot tighten and loosen the band repeatedly without creating problems. Okay, so what I do is I don't try to tighten right away. I try to position in the right place, then start tightening very cautiously. If you have to unwind, it's probably best to go back and change the band because it starts to unwind. Same thing applies for a Toffelmeyer too. You start unwinding a Toffelmeyer and things start really falling apart. So right here, if I start tightening, you'll see that I'm pinching gingiva. So my goal is to try not to tighten too much until I get the matrix band between, just like that. And then I can either use a finger, a handle, or an instrument while I start tightening this by turning it clockwise, little by little by little, verifying the whole time that I have a nice, good adaptation. And once it's pretty tight.
So at this point, you should know they are going to be placing another matrix band on top of this after restoring this subgingival margin, okay?
I'll give it just about another 1/4 turn. And now if we look back over here, I can.
So just looking at the price, you guys are thinking, okay, we are never going to buy this. But just imagine you sitting in your private setup and now you want to practice. Uh, Even if you're not doing a specialization, you want to practice the best work that you know. So this is kind of an enlightenment I'm trying to give you here, that there's so much more to dentistry than you have read till now. So just look at this, how easily the subgingival margin is being, what do I say, replicated. And on top of this, you can again place your regular band just to get the entire restoration in place, right? So this is the technique of deep margin elevation. Not, it's not an invasive method at all. It's just a technique to make you, help you perform better restoration subgingivally, right? So this is what your traditional matrix band they do. What they do is they're going to either leave overhangs, but the one that I just showed you, the curved matrix, how it beautifully adapts to the subgingival margin, the curved matrix as I'm just showing you, right? The ones that are available now in the market, these are the bands. You don't have to write the names, just know that something out there is available for making your dentistry very easy, okay? So this is the one I showed you, real matrix spool, slick bands are available, diamond wedges are available. Matrix in a matrix is the technique that I was just discussing with you, that you first place the thin matrix subgingivally and then cover one horizontal band around it. The saddle matrix will help you achieve that. So this is nothing that you have to be scared or afraid of or mug up. No, this is just for you to know that there's so much out there that you can employ and do. And what makes me discuss this with you today is just because all of this is eventually related to your biologic consideration, how to respect the biologic weight. Lastly, the take home message of this lecture is sweet and easy. It says that periodontal health and tooth restoration are synergistic. As I just told you, that there is an intimate relation which is inseparable between, like lovebirds. It is like periodontal health and tooth restoration, which is in your hand, goes hand in hand, and it's a synergy between the two. Average biologic width is of 2.04 that I already discussed, 2.04 mm. Violation incorrectly if you place the restorative margins, and poorly if you have adapted the restoration, it will eventually lead to bone loss, recession, and which will hinder or violate your biologic width, right? So if you have any questions regarding this chapter or this unit, you can mail me, and you can also find this on YouTube. I hope it is being recorded. Yes. So first of all, I'm going to quickly take a few questions from you, and then I'm going to ask questions. Anyone for questions?
Ma'am,
Who is that? First tell me your name.
मैम आरती
Yeah, Arti, shoot.
मैम जो ऑर्थोडोंटिक एक्सट्रूशन वाला करेक्शन था उसमें हम नॉर्मल एक्सट्रैक्शन नहीं कर सकते?
अगर तुम नॉर्मल एक्सट्रैक्शन करोगे, तो अगर what if the teeth are already crowded, one thing is that crowded teeth है, पेशेंट को already ऑर्थो कराना है, ठीक है? पहले तुम पेशेंट को अपने पास से भेजोगे और बोलोगे एक्सट्रैक्शन कराओ, फिर मेरे पास आओ, फिर मैं तुम्हारा ऑर्थो स्टार्ट करूंगा. हाउ टीडियस एंड हाउ इररेलेवेंट विल दैट बी, आरती? अगर ऐसा कोई ट्रीटमेंट अवेलेबल है ऑर्थो में, ऑर्थोडोंटिक्स में, जिसमें आप 2 in 1 चीजें कर सकते हो, एट द सेम टाइम यू आर एडजस्टिंग, aligning the teeth and also getting rid of that tooth, right? Are you understanding what I'm trying to say here? It's not just
Yes, ma'am.
concerned with oral surgery. It's a holistic approach, and the orthodontist is ready to provide you with that. Okay, and that is why dentistry is basically, on the whole, actually related to one department is related to 3, 4, 5 departments. And if you are skilled enough, तो तुम एक ही department का काम सीख के सारों का कर सकते हो, if you know what the relationship is, right? So this extraction, don't you think orthodontists extraction नहीं करते होंगे? Orthodontic extrusion is one kind of extraction only. Don't you think that? वो एक्सट्रैक्शन खुद ही कर रहे हैं, ऑर्थोडोंटिक एक्सट्रूड करके, अलाइन करके, इम्प्लांट भी खुद दे रहे हैं. अ लॉट ऑफ ऑर्थोडोंटिस्ट्स आर आल्सो अंडरगोइंग इम्प्लांट ट्रेनिंग्स एज वेल. व्हाई? बिकॉज़ दे नो कि this is something I can manage to do in my own patients, right? I hope I answered your question, Aarti.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Any more questions quickly? 10, 1. So otherwise I'll start asking. Aarti, can you quickly tell me what is biologic width, like in your own words? Jaldi se.
मैम 2.04 mm.
होता क्या है वो 2.04 mm? किस किस का डायमेंशन है?
मैम एपिथेलियम और कनेक्टिव टिश्यू अबव द क्रेस्ट, बोन क्रेस्ट.
Okay, very nice. Jaldi se, I'm taking one more. Any questions from your side? अब सबने अपने
मैम
Who's that? Please tell me your name.
मैम आरती.
Yeah, Aarti, go.
मैम एक कंफ्यूजन है, ये सल्कस प्रोब डेप्थ और जो हम पेरिडोंटल पॉकेट वाला डेप्थ लेते हैं उसमें डिफरेंस.
पेरिडोंटल पॉकेट वाला जो डेप्थ लेते हैं
और जो अभी अपन यहाँ बायोलॉजिकल विथ वाला ले रहे हैं.
हाँ, तो पेरिडोंटल
तो
just a second, my maid is doing some. करो. So sorry. Yeah. आप बोल रहे हो कि आप किसी पेशेंट के टूथ का पेरिडोंटल पॉकेट मेजर कर रहे हो, राइट? हेलो.
मैम
या तो जब आप पेरिडोंटल पॉकेट या पॉकेट मेजर कर रहे हो अराउंड द टूथ, डोंट यू थिंक वो और सल्कस की जो डेप्थ है मेजर करना इज सिनोनिमस? इट इज द सेम थिंग. पेशेंट अगर पेरियो में जाता है, अगर कोई पेरियोडोंटाइटिस का पेशेंट जाता है और उसे लोकलाइज या जनरलाइज पेरियोडोंटाइटिस आता है, स्पेशली कॉमन इन अडल्ट पेशेंट्स, राइट? So what one of the basic protocols that they employ is measuring the pocket depth or measuring the sulcus depth. So sulcus depth अगर मेरे और तुम्हारे में measure करेंगे तो वो pocket depth नहीं कहलाएगा, cause क्योंकि pocket तो deep हो जाती है, right? But the criteria remains the same of measuring the two. वो pocket बना क्यों? क्योंकि वो deep है, right? Am I clear? Am I making some sense to you, Aarti?
यस मैम.
Periodontal pocket is basically pathological, understand that, okay? But when I say you measure the sulcus depth or you do the sounding of bone or you employ this procedure, that is just a regular physiologic or a normal, what do I say, a evaluation that the dentist will do, okay? In the US or in any other developed country, it is a kind, even in your case histories, you have this heading of sulcus depth or biologic width depth. You have to evaluate whether or not you have the pocket or not, okay? So this is something which has to be done as a whole, case history protocol. But when you say about periodontal pocket, that only means that some sort of pathology has already happened in the tooth, because you can see on the radiograph bone loss happening, you can see recession happening, very common in periodontitis, not just gingivitis but also periodontitis. So this is one of the criteria the periodontists they employ in their regular evaluation, okay?
ओके मैम.
Okay, any more questions? It's 10:04. I might have to end the class for now. I wanted to ask a few questions, but I don't think so I have time. I have time. I mean, the lecture is over. So just find me. You can write to me, and this is my YouTube. You will find this lecture right there by tomorrow. So just find the lecture there, and this is your last class. So start studying now. Officially, the course is over. Okay, we've taken laborious lectures, in detail lectures, but we will surely come up with revision lectures. We will discuss it with sir, and we'll definitely come with revision lectures, and they will definitely include more of interactive sessions and not just one-sided lectures. So you should be ready to be roasted now. So start studying. The exams will be approaching. Hopefully the things will get better, and you will not have to just be graded according to your ninth and the 10th standard, like the 12th and 12th people. So it's kind of sad for them. So I hope that is not the case with you guys. So you will have, it's a good thing that you will be performing on patients, doing legit exams and all that. So hopefully you will not face that. So just start studying now. Now is the time. Possibly fourth year classes are over till further notice. We're going to come up with revision classes and post you very, very shortly by next week or so. Okay. So if you have any doubts with any lecture, which even if I have not taken it, you can just email me, or you can just clarify your doubts on the on my email. It's always open for you guys. Okay. So I'm going to end the class for you now. Have a good day. Take care of your parents. Bye-bye.